I had a chance to walk in Lynch School for the first time in my life in December of 2017. What a building. What an amazing building. So Danny indicated that, Howie indicated that, rock solid. At the time we were told, Mr. Moriarty, whom I respect, he said the word, the rehab costs were absurd. That's what he said in the paper today. Do you want to know what the rehab costs were? To remove the asbestos? And I believed at the time, $1 million. Now when I heard that, I said, Mike, you're right, $1 million. We at City Council, now I'm an elected official, we were not advised this was a two-school model. This building committee came together in 2016. We had the tour in December of 17. Not told between 2016 and when I toured it in December 17 that we were looking at the two-school model. Not once was that presented in any communication, oral or written, to the City Council. Fast forward to summer of 18, Kevin indicated, we, the committee I chair, we voted zealously to convey the building out to a private developer. Why? Because there was no communication to us that that was the plan. Never once said, never once written, doesn't exist. So your questions are legitimate. Why not Lynch School? We didn't know. I mean, we're elected officials. We did not know. The first time we knew of anything is when they walked into City Council in the fall of 18. This is months after we conveyed out the building. First time we knew we were going to this two-school model. Never once conveyed, never told me. There's nothing written, nothing oral. Rich, do I have a second? Okay.
Real quick, then we're going to get to questions.
I'll go one last thing. Boy, there's so many. I would love to touch on a few, but the $1 million. Kevin hit the highlights of it. But the $1 million. Now this planning we said going to 2016. Never once has $1 million been mentioned until the last 60 days. The last 60 days. Now think about that. And they're asking you to pay taxes on this. So the receiver is making a promise, and I'm using air quotes here, for $1 million. Where's the revenue source for the $1 million? It doesn't exist. There is no revenue source. Kevin touched on the legal, there's no basis in law. In fact, we can't do it. That department can't do it. Prohibited by state law from doing it. Prohibited. But yet the receiver has told me he's in consultation with the Department of Education. I believe him, but I don't believe the $1 million. Now, where is he getting the $1 million? Where is he getting it? From purported savings on energy costs. So he's saying these are savings costs of $4.5 million. We're going to rebuild these two new schools. We're going to save $4.5 million. Out of that $4.5 million, we, the HPS, Holyoke Public Schools, are going to give the city side of the government $1 million out of these savings. These savings that we don't know if they're true or they're not true. There's no way. And on top of that, here's how I'm really doubting it. The assumption might be that we could save on energy costs because why? We have a fantastic Holyoke gas and electric system. By the way, everybody around us has had their power knocked out. Once again, Holyoke's power is on. Nobody lost power in Holyoke. Thank you, HG&E. So remember that $4.5 million the receiver said we're going to save in energy? Over here we have a mayor who on April 22nd, 2019, Earth Day of all days, for heaven's sakes, he writes his manifesto, no more fossil fuels, not in my world, so no more natural gas. Natural gas expanding the pipeline. Talk to Jimmy LaBelle, because he said it on public record in City Council. Came down like a man and said it on the microphone. We cannot expand to businesses. New businesses, forget it. We don't have the capacity. Jimmy LaBelle said on the microphone in a public meeting, in a subcommittee meeting, thank goodness I attended because I learned from good people like Kevin and Linda, and my friend Joe McGivern, who shows up for every city council meeting. We may not agree on much, but he shows up, and I respect him for that. If you want to have power for the 2 new schools, you cannot receive it from natural gas. We don't have it. It's going to have to be propane. You might as well just throw some logs out there and start burning them and have energy from that. Propane or electricity. Two bigger abusers. There are no 2 bigger abusers of the environment than that. But that's what the mayor did. That's the conundrum that we're in. Just may I just have one last aside? Last aside. I received an email forwarded to me by a very brave department head this afternoon, and I have it right here. I have the email right here on my computer, forwarded to me by a department head. And I'm going to read the pertinent parts. But what Kevin said earlier is that the state of the city's finances. We are on, the city of Holyoke is on the edge of a knife as it is. For many reasons. There's no reason to point fingers. I think we generally know what they are. But here's what the department head wrote. I just have to put my glasses on and just let me read it. Good morning. As many of you know, the city is constantly fighting litigation claims. Many of these claims could be litigated and or settled fairly quickly if it were not for lack of funds. I wanted to reach out to each of you to see if you would be able to support these efforts within your department budgets. Now, I'm going to get to the good part in a second, but this just happened a month ago in City Council. Now we start the fiscal year July 1st, I think as most of you know, and we run it to June 30th. That's how government works in Massachusetts municipal government. Generally, when you set the budget July 1st, you don't really make a whole lot of financial transfers until maybe after free cash is certified and the tax rate is set, maybe in January of the following year. We had financial transfers just to fund the Veterans Department a month and a half into the government. Where the transfers come from? Other city departments. So just keep that in mind. So we already did this once. I know I have reached out to some of you in an effort to fund the Veterans Services Department so they could keep their staff employed. I am sorry to have to continue on this same route, but we are currently out of options. Unfortunately, if these suits are not litigated and or settled within a timely fashion, it will cost the city even more. If you are willing to support us at all with additional funding for the solicitor's budget, we would be most grateful. So what is she saying? The city auditor is saying, we cannot run the government until other city department heads from a city budget that's only a few months old, unless you voluntarily slash your budget, volunteer financial transfer to the solicitor's department, the law department, and to fund litigation claims against the city of Holyoke. Mamma mia. This is how desperate we are as a city right now.
All right, David,
Thank you. I want to say, everybody, thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming out. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
We asked earlier folks to write down some questions, and hopefully everybody did. I also want to recognize another gentleman came in for City Councilor candidate, Israel Rivera. And also Devin Sheehan from the school committee. Dr. Zreich as well, correct? Dr. Zreich as well. All right. So, Steve, if you could bring up questions, anybody? Or, we do have some that were submitted, but I want to make sure that we give folks in here also a chance to, if they have a question. So while he's passing them out, please just see Steve and write down your question. So one of the questions we got were, I hope I read this correctly, when will the bonds be secured? And do you have any information on the current rates? So that can be to anyone who wants to take a stab at that. Again, when will the bonds be secured, and do you have any information on the current rates?
So at the initial forum in this very building, our treasurer shared with us that as the project moves forward, short-term bans would be entered into, and at the completion of the project, the long-term bond would be entered into. Subsequent to that meeting, there have been statements made that the basis for which those interest rates were lowered was that the bonds could be secured earlier. So I questioned the chief of staff on this matter. If this is indeed true, does that mean that we would then need to start paying on these bonds if we were actually to secure it immediately? And so he was going to get back to me on that, and I understood there was going to be a clarification issued, but in the latest publication by folks supporting it, they indicated that it would be 3 years out. So I am left with the understanding that the very best answer we've received so far was from our treasurer, who said nobody knows what the interest rates will be.
The proponents say that they will pay the debt off quickly through efficiency, so why are you saying it will take 30 years to pay off the debt? Who wants to take a stab at that?
Well, I'll pass the mic, but I will make one comment. The best predictor of future performance is past performance. And if anybody in this room can show me the last time or any time that our city government has given us back any of the money or cut the budget to reduce the tax rate, I'll update my information.
How can you expect students to learn in schools which are old and not up to date? You have to speak up.
If you have good teachers in the schools, good administrators in the schools, and if you have parental participation in the educational process, the children will learn, regardless of the structure.
And Steve, if you have some of the questions, I can go ahead and, somebody want to go, Kevin, you want to get them from Steve? Yeah, some of the questions. So we're waiting for that. It says, the proponents say will only cost around $100 a year in new taxes. That doesn't seem like much to have two schools. That does not seem like a high price to pay for two schools.
No, of course it doesn't seem like much for two schools, but that's not a realistic number. They move the goalposts constantly. We just talked about that. And by the way, I don't know if you heard, but malls aren't exactly hip now. Lanesboro Mall shut down. Eastfield Mall shut down. Enfield Mall shut down. If Holyoke Mall goes away, that's $600,000 gone. Does the tax bill go away? Negative. So consider that. Thank goodness for Mr. Rogalski and the mall. By the way, malls south of 80% occupancy right now. Mr. Rogalski said that on a record the other day in City Council. So it's under 80%. If it comes in with the proposed movie theater that Chairman Bacon supported an order for that, that's going to boost the occupancy. This is 50,000 square feet that they're taking on. That'll boost the occupancy to 81%. So there's still 19%, 19% of that mall is vacant. If that goes down the tubes, that $600,000 tax bill gets dispersed throughout the city. So just consider that. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the questions we have from the audience tonight is, what is the plan for schools if this doesn't pass? Can you promise me my daughter will have safer, sometimes it's the handwriting, so I apologize for that, safer, healthier schools so I can keep her here in the public school system because I can't afford the alternatives? So again, the question is, what is the plan for the schools if this doesn't pass? Can you promise me my daughter will have safer, healthier schools so I could keep her here in the public school system because I can't afford the alternative?
So all I can say of my direct experience with that, at one of our public meetings, I asked that very question. What if this question doesn't pass? What will be done? And the answer that I received, to the best of my recollection, is that the statement was that we will continue to move and proceed to the middle school model. And then later in other discussions, you know, and there were some discussions about where would the children go during construction and the various work that would be done. At least one of the options was the dean's school that would be used for some of the students, at least on a temporary basis. And that kind of just got me thinking, well, that might be an option if we need to look at other options in the future. And personally, I went to elementary school, first grade through sixth grade, and then junior high was 7th and 8th, and then to high school. And, you know, I think that's another possibility too, of renovating, keeping our children in safe and improved environments. And I do think there's a variety of options out there, but I did hear a commitment to continue to move back to that model. Perhaps my takeaway would have been that it might be more incremental in nature.
Okay, so this one is
May I make
directed to...
a quick comment? The schools are important as a structure and a place for the learning to be facilitated. The learning itself is not the school. And one of the school proposals on Chestnut begs the question, where will the kids go when they're not in the classroom? Do they have a place to play, a place to run around? Or will they be walking over to the high school fields to play over there? So your question about safety, I think, is very reasonable. But you have to look at safety in terms of, are they going to be safe if they're traveling around town to get exercise or to participate in after-school sports? Has that been provided for? The Lynch option, it's clear what that's going to be. The Peck option, if it was remodeled, they have those fields there. I think that in fact, safety might be improved by going with some of the options we talked about tonight.
And this one, Dan, is addressed. Dan, this
I don't think anybody on this panel would oppose a feasibility study looking into one new school with 80% reimbursement from the state, which is what just about every school system in the state gets. I'd certainly be an advocate for the building of one building, see how that goes, the enrollment, et cetera, and work from that premise. I don't think we would have too much objection for that.
And, okay, so, Dan, this one's addressed to you. Can you clarify your statement, kids out in the park? The reason is they are not doing anything because it falls on the parents. Parents who can't read at night because of working are considered worse parents?
Clearly, that's not my point, and I appreciate the question. My point was simply that education is not, you can't drop off your kids to school when it's a daycare center, and you got a free babysitter for 8 hours a day. Parents have to be involved with their children at home. And my point is that, you know, this isn't New York City. If you drive down around here, you see a lot of young kids that, if you're a parent, you probably wouldn't have them out at night. I've got 3 jobs. I coach 3 different sports. I make the time for my family. I ensure when I get home and I'm shoving food in my child's mouth that he's got his homework done. So I mean, it's not an issue of working hard or how much you work or what your activities are. The fact of the matter is, parents have to spend time at home with their children doing educational things. I would not allow my 6th grader out in a park after hours. When the street lights are on, your fanny's home, bottom line.
So this question is it true?
Yeah,
this,
can I touch on that real quick?
well,
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the safety in Holyoke, right? I'm a younger guy and I spend a lot of time on social media. I'm not sure who's on Hello Holyoke, who saw the post a couple days ago about an older gentleman that went to the library and got jumped by 4. Yeah, I mean, come on guys, nobody wants to say it, I'll say it. Like, what do you mean? There's irresponsible parents out there and those are the ones, that's why our kids are failing. You know, let's come out and say it, let's be honest about it, you know, I'll be upfront about it.
So this next question says, is it true the city can support one school with no state reimbursement and no increase in taxes?
We need state reimbursement for anything that we're going to do. The point that was made earlier is we have state-run schools. They decided to take over the schools. We didn't want them to take over the schools. They wanted to take over the schools. They hired a receiver, sent him down, said, you run the place. The problem is they came with an empty checkbook. And they thought that they were going to fix everything on a hope and a prayer. That didn't work out. So now they've come down, and the grand solution that apparently evaded all of us all this time was, we needed the state to come down and tell us that we're cheap and we don't want to spend $133 million, that was the solution the whole time to the problem in the schools. So I think what we can all take away from this, from the one school proposal or the 2 school proposal, is the state needs to put the money where their mouth is, and they need to support Holyoke for once. They're constantly shortchanging this community, and they want to put it on our backs. That's not right. We deserve our 80%, and then yes, if we did a $60 million school, as was, by the way, the original proposal, and we had to pay $12 million, we could do that with current money that we have amortized over 30 years. We could do that internally as we financed a large portion of the Holyoke High School renovation. So yes, we could do that. There would be no need for a tax increase if the state gave us the 80% and we had a one school choice.
And this other question is directed to the schools, and how is the progress going on the $1 million? Yeah, I guess I'm assuming it's the progress going on the $1 million payment from the school committee, or the school.
The progress? Well, that promise will be, is a new development. Again, we have labeled it the October surprise. And the November surprise is when the promise goes away right after the election.
Yeah, right.
And this one's kind of combined with a couple others which are along the same line. What is the other plan? What is the other plan? When do you plan on working on a better plan? So instead of the 2 schools, what is the better plan? What is your plan? What is the alternative?
I think in terms of future plans, depending on how the voters decide in the November election, once that decision is made, if the opportunity is there to go back to the table to come up with a more practical and affordable and fair plan for everyone in the city, we can do that. And I would note that unlike some other proposals that have been voted down in other cities, which have happened, it's happened recently in Amherst, They've been able to reapply in the next year or two with a different proposal. It allows to then come back and either modify the plan, go for renovations, or if it was following a vetting, I hope in a public forum, in a similar way that we did our urban renewal plan. Many of you in the room may have participated in that. We had meetings throughout the lower wards for a number of weeks and months before that plan was pulled together. And I think if we had a process like that, it would work out to a better result. And I also think that we already have a fully developed plan for one school. People are recently and on an ongoing basis raising safety issues in that area. But in terms of design, there is one design, at least, that has been fully developed and approved, if you will, by the state board. So I personally would look forward to having a robust process with people in the public forum relative to such a huge project that would dwarf the current debt of our entire city. This is a huge issue in our city, and it cannot be overstated. And what is distressing to me is the degree, the high degree of the lack of knowledge and information that the people who will be voting have. That is the worst part of this to me. Thank you.
So the other question is, the whole turnaround.
If I could, Rich?
Well, we
Just
gotta-
ask that. Here's a plan. Here's a plan. Melinda makes a great point. These two schools, $132 million. You know what it costs to run the government, the entire government of the city of Holyoke for 1 year? $132 million. So the entire city government for 1 year, that's police, fire, DPW, teachers, schools, you name it. 1 year, it's $132 million. Two buildings, $132 million. Here's the plan. Have a 24-person committee that's on camera like we are all the time as city council. Have it be made up of business people. Have it be made up of just normal people, not stacked.
David, we're gonna get to the other-
Not stacked with City Hall insiders and consultants and Fontaine brothers that are going to profit from this. That's what you do. That's how you get community behind it, and you will get this community behind it.
All right, so the other question is,
Quickly. The majority of people in this room and the majority of people in the city want a united city. We don't want a divided city. Some of the things that have been put on the internet, on Facebook, and different things like that are highly insulting. Name calling and everything else. It's deplorable what's going on as far as the division in the city. If we don't come together and make a go of it as a total unit, then this city is going to be divided forever.
very good point. The whole turnaround plan is not just about 2 new middle schools. Can you please let me know, how do you plan to support this? AKA teacher retention, moving to the K-8 model.
Well, isn't that why the receiver's here? What's his job? That's his job. I mean, the job isn't to come in and throw this against the wall with a $132 million bill. That's not his job, is to figure it out. Start figuring it out. That's what I would say. You know, we're losing teachers left and right. These are Holyoke people that I know darn well leaving the school system. I have a friend from college, came back. He's quitting the job, and he came back from, he's quitting the job at Holyoke High after 3 months. Can't stand it. Start retaining teachers. Start retaining Holyokers that give a darn about the city. That's how you move it forward.
And, okay, so we're going to get to the last 3 questions, see if we can get it done in time. If this proposal were to pass, what is the time frame it will open? People seem to think it will be open next year.
It's 3 years.
3
right?
years.
It took 2 to 3 years, but you know, we didn't know about the $1 million till 6 months ago, or 2 months ago. So you know, maybe that may change. And by the way, in the meantime, where do you think the kids are going to go for the 2 to 3 years while the demos happen in construction? Does anybody know? Well, there's been no official announcement. They're either going to go in modules or they're going to go in existing buildings. So for 2 to 3 years, that's where the kids are going to go. They're not going to be up and running for next fall. They're going to be in module buildings, maybe, but they cost a lot of money. Kind of like what they had at Paulo Freire School of Justice up there on Lower Westfield. So it'll be in buildings like that, or they'll be in existing buildings. The same existing buildings that apparently are no good. Thank you.
What is the amount of outstanding bonds currently? This is a three-part question. The amount of outstanding bonds currently, will the city be bonding for the fire hydrant repair? Is the city self-insured? Does the city have any outstanding liabilities? Quickly, I know that's a lot, but just try to quickly.
Let's do one just to remember, ask part one again.
Okay. What is the amount of outstanding bonds currently?
If you don't count G&E, water department and sewer, it's approximately $30 million.
Okay, will the
But
city
if
be
you
bonding?
do, much more.
Will the city be bonding for the fire hydrant repairs?
Yes, because, and it's actually not fire hydrant repair, because there really isn't a fire hydrant problem. Just to refresh everybody's memory, the city needs to replace 6 miles of pipe. For example, the situation up on Fairfield Avenue and Morgan Street, and there's quite a number of sections throughout. You go down to Main Street, below Dean Vocational, all those neighborhoods in there. The pipe, for example, at Morgan and Fairfield was installed in the 1880s, okay, a few years ago. Those pipes are now, you know, like this size down to this, and that is causing the water flow. Those improvements to add on the new 3 million is going to be 6.5 million. To add the 3 miles is going to be 6.5 million. On top of that, the water department is already bonding for 13.3 million to do another 3 miles of pipe. In addition to that, there's water tanks going out in West Holyoke, because one of the concerns about our residents that live in West Holyoke is if you had a serious fire, it would have a drawdown. That fire on Fairfield Avenue, I don't know if people realize it, used 750,000 gallons of water to put it out. It's a serious drawdown on the tanks. Well, what happens when you only got one tank? If you had multiple simultaneous fires and things going on at West Holyoke. So to have redundancy in the system, they need to do all these improvements. So that will be bonded for, but it's going to have, that 20 million is going to have to be paid with a 25% rate increase in your water rates.
And the other one is the city self-insured?
Yeah, I'm assuming you mean by self-insured, is it self-insured for health insurance? And for most casualty and property claims, the answer is generally yes. For health insurance, the city has vacillated from different periods of time from being self-insured to fully insured, generally leaning towards self-insured as cheaper. In terms of property claims, we usually have a rider that if a claim gets so big that they have a excess policy that kicks in. Any other questions?
I just have one last question.
Yeah, we have one.
What are the new?
You have time for one more.
What are the newest buildings for a school built? Isn't Peck one of the newer buildings older than